Today I wanted to discuss CBDC. CBDC stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. You may or may not have heard of this CBDC. What is a central bank digital currency? A central bank digital currency is actual fiat currency in digital form. I want you to think of the paper note now as an image in your phone. So they want to create digital wallets, and in those digital wallets, you will have your digital notes, the way you carry physical notes in your pocket. So they're trying to usher in a cashless society. Why is Central Bank of Kenya trying to introduce this digital currency? Well, if you understand how the Central Bank of Kenya works, you'll understand that it's not controlled by the government that is in Nairobi. It's controlled from outside of Kenya. And whatever instructions they're getting from the foreign masters, and I don't mean that lightly. I'm not just saying that to sound coy or to sound clever. I mean that in the literal form. It is controlled from outside of Kenya. And it's very easy to prove that. You remember, and I'm digressing, but I need to prove this point. You remember when President Uhuru requested the CBK to lift the rule that makes banks ask you where you got your money from. Like if you're trying to transact 1 million shillings, the bank will ask you, where did you get this money and where are you taking the money? And it's your own money, and they didn't help you to get that money. So if you question the bank, they'll tell you they're obeying a central bank rule that makes them ask you that question. Fine. So President Uhuru told CBK to lift that rule, to raise the threshold to maybe 10 million. Okay? The central bank said no. In one of his first speeches as president, Ruto also requested the central bank to raise the threshold to about 10 million shillings before they ask you that question where you're transferring the money. Because it's more than just a question. You know, it creates delays for many small businesses. It's tantamount to sabotage of small business, right? And 1 million shillings is no longer a huge amount of money. So the central bank governor issued a statement saying no. And the reasons he gave was that they had not been given instructions from America to change that rule. So you see, the CBK disobeyed 2 sitting presidents, saying that they must be given authorization from America. You go look at that quote, look at the statement that they made, and you'll see that's exactly what they said. So when I said that Central Bank of Kenya is controlled by its foreign masters, I mean that in the literal form. So the instructions have come to them to implement a digital currency. And we didn't vote for this. No one asked us our opinion. And it is in instances such as this one that makes you realize that Kenya is a colony. It's ruled from the outside. Okay? So just so we are clear, who rules the country? Whoever rules the country is the person who controls the money, right? Yeah. So the country is ruled from the outside. So the CBK has been given instructions to try and implement a digital currency, all without requesting us as Kenyans for our permission whether we want to participate in whatever foreign agenda they have. So the first thing I want to say is that, remember, CBK is not your friend. Never forget that. The CBK doesn't take any action in the best interest of Kenya. Every action they take is to our detriment. Never forget that. Over the past few years, we keep on seeing CBK making statements the way they are opposed to cryptocurrencies. Now, what interest does CBK have in opposing cryptocurrencies? What's the problem with cryptocurrencies? I'll tell you what the problem is. And you have to understand that the CBK, when they speak, they're speaking from the instructions they've received from their foreign masters, whoever is in control of them, right? So their foreign master is saying no to cryptocurrency. Why? This is the issue, and this is why they're fighting cryptocurrency so hard. Cryptocurrency is digital currency that is decentralized. No one controls it. When you have cryptocurrency, you have almost complete freedom anywhere you want to go and in anything that you want to buy. It is this freedom that they're trying to crash. They're trying to put themselves in the driver's seat of your money, of your life. You very well know that private persons are not allowed to print money in Kenya. It is only the CBK that is allowed to print and issue currency in Kenya. That is a form of control. You may say that is good, not necessarily. Why? Because if you discover gold in your land and you have gold, who made that gold? It's not CBK, yet gold has value. right? Are you understanding? You're supposed to be free. They're not supposed to be in absolute control. So, which is why they've passed laws in Kenya concerning gold, saying that Kenyans are not supposed or are not legally allowed to possess physical gold. And any gold that is discovered in Kenya is supposed to be handed over to the British. Those are the laws on the books right now, right? So following that level of control is the same thing that they are saying that they are opposed to cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. Now, what you need to understand is that Kenya is one of the highest adopting nations in the world when it comes to cryptocurrency. In fact, there was a time when Kenya was ranked number 3 in the world in terms of the proportion of the population that had adopted cryptocurrencies. Now, this did not please the CBK. And I want you to understand, when they're saying they're opposed to cryptocurrencies, they are saying they want it to be banned. So, is it in our interest to ban cryptocurrencies? Will Kenya benefit if Bitcoin is banned? No, Kenyans won't benefit. You understand? Kenyans are very quick to adopt new technology, especially when it comes to investment. It is the government or the elite that sabotages this. So that when cryptocurrencies were first discovered by Kenyans, the adoption rate was extremely high. And in fact, that was surprising to very many countries in the world that Kenya ended up number 3 in adopting cryptocurrencies. It is in our interest to continue holding cryptocurrencies, because when the price goes up, Kenyans become rich, isn't it? And as cryptocurrencies continue to be adopted, it means Kenyans at some point will have a very large windfall. Now, why would CBK show up and sabotage this? Why would they sabotage something that Kenyans are using to make money? Because that is the role of government. The government doesn't act in our best interest. They are there to act in the best interest of the West. You never forget that. Do not forget that. Why hasn't Kenya become a manufacturing state? Because Kenyans are always looking for new vehicles of investment. Why are there no factories in Kenya? Largely. Why is almost everything imported? Because the government takes every step to prevent the rise of a manufacturing state in Kenya. You saw what they tried to do to Keroche. They did everything to crash it. And they shut down very many factories. Anywhere Kenyans had opened up a business that is manufacturing, the government would show up through its agencies, whether it's KRA or whoever, they would show up and shut it down. So the government or the elite that rules Kenya is actively fighting against us to keep us down. These are not our allies. So when the CPK says that they're opposed to Bitcoin, it's because Bitcoin benefits Kenyans, okay? But it doesn't benefit the control mechanism coming from New York or Washington or London or wherever the instructions come from. You understand? Because for a long time, currency has been printed by the British in Kenya. When you look at that physical note, where does it come from? It comes from the British. It's the British who've been in control of our money for the last 100 years. Why didn't the elite remove the British from controlling our money? Because the elite is there to protect Western interests. Now, Bitcoin is a currency that is not controlled by any Western government. And that's why CBK is against it. Because they are trying to give back control back to their foreign masters, to the Mzungu master. So, with that being said, the central bank digital currency that they are saying they will introduce is to give back control over digital money back to the West. Because if it's coming from the Central Bank of Kenya and the CBK is controlled from London and Washington, then the control has gone back to the Mzungu. So the digital currency, anytime you hear the word digital, always think mark of the beast. Any single time. Anytime you hear that the government wants to make the entire government services digitally so that you can access them digitally, they're saying they're going to have one digital payment system. Just one number through which you can pay for all government services. And they're telling you it's for your convenience. It's to make your life easier. It's for you to be safe. I want you to think 5 times. It's the mark of the beast system they're setting up. So this is a very, very wide topic. And I can't possibly cover it in one video. It would take hours to cover every single thing that this means, the implications of this, and where the instructions are coming from, what are the instructions, and even more important, what is the end goal. So I'm just going to touch up very lightly overall what is the big idea. Okay, so what is the bigger picture? Where is this CBDC going? Overall, what they're trying to do is to create what is called a social credit ecosystem. That simply means that you'll have a number that follows you throughout your life. Already they've said, the government announced that they'll be giving digital identity to small babies when they're born. They'll have a number that follows them throughout their life. An inescapable number. Okay, let's keep it pushing. they want to give power to government over your personal life using that number. So this number is following you all over, and you're given a credit score. Let's say you're given 100 points. These points can be reduced if you do what the elite or what the government doesn't want you to do. And this could be anything. You could say the wrong thing on social media, and they deduct 5 points. And as you lose points, you lose life privileges. Okay? So that at some point, they will tell you, if your points are at 50, you cannot board a matatu, for example. If your points are at 40, you cannot do X. You cannot do Y. You cannot go beyond 2 kilometers out of your house. Basically, they want to turn your life and the entire planet into a prison. Now, they need to give teeth to this number that they're now beginning to issue to small babies. Okay? How do they do this? They will use the digital currency that is controlled by central bank. They will link your account. You'll have one account. Okay? And that account is attached to that number that they gave you when you were born. And your account is a money account, isn't it? So maybe you have, let's say for example, 100,000 shillings in digital form. And you've gone on Facebook and you've said something that the elite doesn't like. So they immediately deduct points from you in your social credit score account. So you are at 100, now you're at 80. And then at the same time, they give you an instant fine. Are you seeing how that works? And it could be anything. Okay? It's just the same way today, many of you are careful what you write on Twitter, because if you oppose the Ushoga, Twitter can ban you, right? So I want you to think you oppose to Ushoga that they're trying to introduce into the society. And don't forget, it is the government that is in Nairobi that is introducing LGBTQ. Do not forget, it's them. Okay? So you're opposed to that. And you write about it on Twitter. What happens? Your account is suspended on Twitter. What else happens? You lose 20 points on your social credit score. What else happens? You lose 5,000 shillings from your digital wallet. Just like that, in an instant. And then I want you to remember the time when there was a lot of propaganda about the chanjo. And they were trying to convince all of you to take that chanjo. And you didn't know what was inside the chanjo. And there were enough people with common sense who knew not to take the chanjo, right? Now, what did Uhuru say? Do you remember? Uhuru said, if you refuse to take the chanjo, you will not be allowed to enter a government office. So they were denying you your constitutional guaranteed rights of obtaining service from government. He said that right will be cancelled. Number two, he urged the public transport industry, the matatus, to prevent people from entering matatus who did not show proof that they had taken the chanjo. So basically, he was saying that you'll be cut off from all your social and economic life. Exactly what God has warned you that the wicked will do at the very end, that unless you take this mark, you'll not be allowed to buy or sell or participate in economic life in your country. That is what Uhuru was trying to set up, right? So, but the matatus ignored him. Almost everyone ignored him, and they couldn't do anything. You understand? So with the CBDC, they can do something. They can say, if you don't take this chanjo, they're trying to force you to take something that you do not want into your body, right? If you refuse to take this chanjo, your account is suspended. Now, what will that mean for your personal life? It means total loss of freedom. It means someone like Uhuru, who was totally compromised by his foreign masters, can literally control, he can prevent you from being able to feed your child unless you participate in the games that they are playing. So that is just a microcosm of the dangers that CBDC is presenting to us, or they are trying to introduce to us. Now, CBDC, the digital technology allows whoever controls it to determine very many things. So I want you to think it is money in digital form, but it is not money in the way in cash form. You know the way when you have cash in your pocket, you can spend it anywhere, anytime, buy anything you want. It gives you absolute freedom. That's why we say cash is king. Cash gives power to whoever holds it. It's actual power, right? It's called purchasing power. That's why we say that, right? With the digital currency, you lose the power part of it. Okay? You can purchase, but you don't have power, because digital currencies are programmable currencies. In other words, it will work like a token, like a ration card or like a gift card. You know the way you can go to a supermarket and buy like a supermarket gift card. That gift card has monetary value, right? So you can give it as a gift to someone in a wedding. Or I'm giving you a gift card worth 10,000 shillings. But there are heavy restrictions on that gift card, isn't it? For example, you can only use it in that retailer that issued it. You cannot take that gift card and just go to any other place and try and spend it. You have to go back to the retailer that issued it. So it's already restricted. So that's how digital currency is. It is programmable and it can be put very many restrictions. In other words, the government, let's say you have 100,000 shillings in your digital wallet. Now, that 100,000 shillings, the CBK or the government can predetermine how you spend that money. They can say you're only allowed to spend 5,000 shillings on petrol. You're only allowed to spend 2,000 on beer. You're only allowed to spend 1,000 on meat. They can budget that money for you. And that's what they're proposing to do. They're proposing to put a budget for your own money so that you lose total freedom in how you want to spend your money. You understand? The other thing that is very disturbing about this digital currency is the fact that it has an expiration date. In other words, they'll tell you your salary is 100k a month and we've issued you 100,000 worth of digital shillings. Fine. And then they tell you if you do not spend this money within X number of days, let's say within 60 days, the money has expired. What does that mean? It means you'll never become rich, because to become rich, you need to accumulate money. You need to be able to save up for things. In this way, they'll prevent you from ever becoming rich because you can never accumulate. The money evaporates into thin air. Do you really want to live in a country where you cannot save up your money, where the money disappears magically? And when it disappears, where does it go? It's all a scam. Can you see that? The other challenge presented by this digital currency is the fact that you have no privacy. The government is able to see how much you have in your account and where and when you're spending that money. You have zero privacy. Do you really want the government knowing every single thing you spend your money on? Because they'll use that against you, isn't it? They can leak that information to your enemies. No one should know how much money you have in life. That's why there are multiple banks and you have your account, and your account is always secret. And no one has the total view of how much money you have except you, because you're the only person who can access your account. So I want you to think, they're saying you'll only have one account in your life, and the government is able to see everything in that account. It is extremely disturbing to think that your employer will also be able to program your salary, that your employer will predetermine where and when and how you can spend your salary. I want you to think about that. The other challenge it presents us is the fact that the government can predetermine where you can spend your money. And by where, I mean the geographical location. In other words, they can put a geo border, a digital border on where you can spend your money. In other words, they can prevent you from going, for example, to Mombasa and spending your money. I want you to think about that. You remember when they were doing the Chanjo propaganda, because that's the best example for you to see how this would play out in real life. Uhuru said that if you're in Nairobi, you cannot move out of Nairobi. In other words, they turned Nairobi into a very large prison camp, isn't it? They were telling you are not allowed to go this way, that way. And they had put curfew and they put soldiers or police to prevent people from going in and out of Nairobi, right? Now I want you to think, if they had the digital currency, what they would do, they would simply block your currency from working, if you're in Nairobi, from working out of Nairobi. So that the minute you leave Nairobi, you cannot buy anything. I want you to think about that and how dangerous it is. So I want you to think, you've said the wrong thing on Twitter. The state is pushing Ushoga and you're opposed to that and you've said something about that. One of the punishments that they'll put upon you, they will be able to track where you normally spend your money. And then they'll discover, oh, you go to Kisumu once a month and you stay at this hotel and you do this. Then they'll block you from being able to spend money in Kisumu as part of your punishment. Using the central bank digital currency, the government will also be able to determine the time when you're spending your money. In other words, they can put a restriction. They can put you on curfew like a child, the way they put all of you on a curfew during the Chanjo propaganda, that you cannot be out of your house after 9 p.m. So they turned all of you into children, and you did not resist, right? And they told it is for your own safety. Why? Well, because the virus travels at night. It doesn't travel during the day, it travels at night. So hide yourself inside the house. So they turned your house into a prison. And none of you protested. And I think that is what bothers me more than the criminal actions the government took at that time. It bothers me that it didn't bother you, that it's so easy to turn you into a slave. No resistance. One man who is compromised by the West, putting you inside your house like a child. Anyway, let's keep it pushing. I want you to think, if they had a digital currency, then they would put all of you on a curfew at will, or they can put you personally on a curfew at will. They can say that you can only spend money from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. After 5 p.m., you cannot spend money, and they block you, severely restricting your activities. So I want you to be afraid, be very afraid of this thing that you're hearing, digital currency. Anytime you hear the government use the word digital, like I said before, I want you to associate it with the mark of the beast system. This is the fitna of Dajjal. So how will the government implement this? They will do several things to force you people to accept the digital currency. First of all, they'll use a lot of propaganda. They'll tell you, oh, it's for your own safety, it is for your own good, it is a better system, it is faster. They'll give you all sorts of hype for you to accept it. But we very well know that adoption may be very, very slow. So what else are they going to do to force you to accept it? One of the things they'll do, they'll stop printing money. You heard the other day that the currency printer for Kenya, the British company that was manufacturing checks and printing money, you heard that all of a sudden they packed up and left Kenya. All of a sudden, from nowhere. And there was an immediate crisis of checks, that banks could not get checks. And you people bought into that story, not understanding that was by pre-arrangement, that they are trying to remove things like checks and cash in order to force you to accept the new digital currency. Okay, so that was the first thing they did, right? Now the second thing is, you'll hear that we are having a cash shortage, that, oh, we don't have enough coins in the market, oh, we don't have enough notes in the bank. So when you go to the bank, they tell you, oh, we are sorry, you can only withdraw 5,000 shillings maximum. We are running out of notes. We are running out of coins. Do not be deceived. That is by pre-arrangement. Understand this. Nothing ever catches government by surprise. If you see it happening, trust me, they planned it. Don't be naive. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman. Don't be naive and stop believing the newspapers. The newspapers are controlled by the same forces. Okay, the coconuts who are in charge of the newspapers, they are part of this program. Do not be deceived. So once they create an artificial shortage of cash, they'll say, since there is no cash, why don't you use the digital currency? And it's limitless in amount. And it's so convenient for you. And then the other thing they will do, you'll begin to hear banks are closing. You'll hear that bank collapsed, the other bank is closing. This is all orchestrated. It is all by prior arrangement. Okay? And then you'll begin to see them trying to pass legislation against cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. They'll try to convince you how cryptocurrency is not good for you, how it is dangerous, how you should not have it. Okay, they'll do all these things. And I'm only doing this video to try and inform you ahead of time, so that when you see these things happening, you'll be armed and you'll understand what the program is, what the big idea is, what the agenda is. And so how do you protect yourself from all these government machinations? First of all, understand what is happening and what they're trying to do. Number two, demand legislation to prevent them from using CBDC as the only currency. That there should be very strong legislation to prevent government, which is totally controlled from the outside, fully compromised, right? To prevent them from not issuing actual notes and coins in Kenya. There must be a cash alternative at all times. Don't allow them to push you into this digital prison. It's a prison they're building. Don't willingly walk into that prison. Now, the other thing that you should do individually is that you have to find a way to buy gold and precious metal. I know it is illegal for Africans in Kenya to possess gold, but if you have the privilege of being able to travel around the world, once you get to those countries, try and buy gold. But the problem is, if you try to bring it to Kenya, the KRA will capture you at the airport and steal it from you. So we need to push for legislation to decriminalize Africans from possessing gold in Kenya. But you try to do your best to get your hands on some gold. That is the perfect store of value. It never loses value. And it has never lost value in the last 6,000 years. You can never go wrong having gold or having silver. And lastly, make sure to own land. You must own land. In conclusion, nothing good is coming. You have to prepare yourself for the things that have to come on earth. So good luck.